Lead Time is a weekly dose of leadership insights and interviews from Tim Allman and Jake Bessling. Lead Time is for any leader living in a busy world looking to be inspired, equipped, and empowered to lead others to their fullest potential. This is Lead Time.
Welcome to Lead Time. This is Tim Allman here with Jacob Bessling and our Director of Finance and Operations, Jack Kalberg. Yes. It is a great day to be alive, Christ Greenfield. Yesterday, you just experienced a brand new look. I bet there's conversation around that, the mark, the logo, as well as a brand new language. What gets us the most excited is the language. And we are going to spend over the next 30 minutes or so to have a conversation about why we thought changing now was the right time, and to reiterate what is not changing, and then to just go deeper in terms of our mission and our values. I can remember, Jake and Jack, about almost 7 years ago.
We remember too.
Yeah. At this time, you know what I was doing 7 years ago? I was in Colorado at Bethlehem Lutheran Church preparing to come down on a golf trip to Gold Canyon. That happened in May. I remember coming to this campus. I remember you were on your bike.
I was
Jake?
biking in and I was like, who are these young, trendy, millennial guys, golf people, coming on campus? And then we got to meet, talk a little bit. And then you got a call to Christ Greenfield to be our next pastor.
It's crazy. And thank you for trusting a 31-year-old kid who didn't know what he was doing. All I knew is that Jesus wanted to do a new thing here in this space, that this congregation was filled with passionate, mission-oriented, opinionated in the best sense of the word, driven people to accomplish the mission of Jesus, and that I could just come in and be one leader amongst many who give permission to go and start and try. And so the narrative was a church and a school that was not as tightly connected as we now are, praise be to God, a congregation that was not as externally focused as we now are, praise be to God. We were financially anxious, and now we are at a much more stable, future-focused position financially. So thank you for trusting me and these incredible leaders that are at the table, and many others today as we've gone on mission to make Jesus known. So let's talk first about what is not changing. Pastor Jake, why don't you give people an opportunity to breathe and relax? What's not changing?
Well, good news. I talked to many of you yesterday at the East Mesa campus that came out and they heard as we both talked at both campuses about what's not changing. And you really resonated with, we are still LCMS, Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, Lutheran Christians. Mm-hmm. That when you still go to the website at lcms.org, you're going to find Christ Greenfield. That on our own website, you're going to still see that Lutheran heritage really grounds us. And so it's just exciting to be a part of 6,000 congregations in the LCMS. We're still a part of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod that goes back about 200 years. So we have this deep foundational roots. And then all the way back to Martin Luther, and before Luther, all the way back to Jesus himself. So every Sunday, as you heard yesterday and next week and the following and Tuesday nights, you're going to be hearing the word preached, the law distinguished, and it's going to kill us every week. And we're going to be raised up with the gospel of Jesus Christ, preached and proclaimed to you. So our doctrine is not changing. That's secure.
The sacraments
to receive the body and blood of Jesus, to receive baptismal grace through faith is still intact. We still talk about Luther's Small Catechism, the 6 chief parts of the Catechism, confession, absolution, the Lord's Prayer, the creeds. We are a Christian church that walks in step with LCMS Lutheran doctrine.
And just to add on to that,
Jack.
Another thing that's not changing is as we update our branding, we're not changing our legal name. So our legal name will remain Christ Greenfield Lutheran Church, and there's no plans to change that. And the other things that remain the same is our constitution and bylaws that defines the organization, which mandates that we will continue to be part of the LCMS doctrine and tradition. That's outside of our, even if nobody would want to, but even if you wanted to, that's outside of our realm to change. And so we are still solidly rooted into the LCMS family.
Yes, absolutely. So why did we view this season, this time, as the right time for a brand? modification. This is a big deal. It could have been a total brand change. And what would that have looked like? A brand new name, and even moving toward a brand new legal name in connection to our district and our synod. But we really felt like Christ Greenfield had a lot of momentum, a lot of traction. Jesus was moving, but we just needed to share our story in a different way. So share why we thought now was a good time, Pastor Jake.
I mean, personally, I really resonated with over the last 7-8 months as we looked at this and then finalized it here recently, that our current logo, our current brand really didn't tell the full story of who Christ Greenfield was, a family of ministries that we're reaching, yes, upper middle class people here in Gilbert, going to East Mesa, but also the working poor and homeless. We're family of ministries, our school and church united. And so we needed an update, a new look, new core values and language to really back up what the culture has been set here. And so we believe, and I hope you do too, the new core values, the mission statement, excuse me, and the branding really tell a different story about our history and also where we're going. And the second reason is we're going to East Mesa, and we really believe that in the next 20 years, we could see 20 new campuses and also micro churches started, new schools even, and preschools to reach the community. So with that kind of big vision, that big why, that people need Jesus, we were launching East Mesa. And instead of branding 3 years from now in a different way, instead of changing things in a couple of years, we decided let's do that now. And I really feel in the heart of hearts and in our collective hearts that it was the right decision.
One question is, as we go into this multi-site new phase where we're expanding, and we've got this big vision of launching.
Talk about your vision, Jack.
Oh yeah, the
it's our
2020
vision. It's not yours.
It's our vision, but I tell the story through my own lens, right? Which is that I'm 45 years old and that I have, it's the year 2020. So as a 45-year-old, projecting out in the future, if God wills it, then I've got at least another 20 years to serve and beyond that. So I think 2020, 20 years, what could we do in 20 years? So I've been talking about the 2020 vision, which is we would love to be able to either launch or partner or support 20 campuses or some sort of campus equivalent over the next 20 years.
20 and 20.
And have that all supported centrally.
That's so huge, man.
And in order to do anything like that, you have to have a really good look and core values and mission statement.
Right.
And so we now have that.
But talk about why we're continuing to call ourselves Christ Greenfield. Why not some other name? Because one question came up is like, if we've got a campus in another location, does it really make sense to keep using the word Christ Greenfield?
So right up front, Greenfield, this campus at 425 North Greenfield Road was around all sorts of corn green fields. I think that's where the metaphor basically came from. And we really feel like the metaphor of green and growth and multiplication could travel to multiple sites. And then whose are we? Right. Christ. Right. He is at the heart and center of this ministry. One thing that we were struggling with too with the brand is there are a lot of Christ type ministries.
A lot of Christ
in the valley, which is a good thing. Yeah. There's a Christ Church Lutheran in Phoenix. There is a Christ
Church of the Valley.
Church of CCV, Christ Church of the Valley. Another one, Christ Church down in downtown Gilbert, close to downtown Gilbert. So Greenfield really helps to distinguish us. We are Christ Greenfield. So I've never done this before, Jack. Right. I've never walked through a brand modification, nor been in this time and this season trying to lead this sort of change management. And this is hard.
It is tough.
It really is.
We've had some really great people working with us, though. Some fantastic consultants.
That's a good idea. I mean, that's a good thing to go into because you might be thinking, man, these three ducks are just sitting around in the pond, just kind of shooting from the hip. So talk to us about the relationship
behind
we had with Historic Agency, which happened to be right out of downtown Gilbert, who works with many large organizations.
Yeah, so some of the organizations they've partnered with is, you may have heard of them, Barna, and then Saddleback. So,
those
at
are
least
big,
a couple
big churches.
small organizations. Yeah, but
Rick Warren's church, so purpose-driven in Saddleback.
They've got an incredible track record of working with some significant, seriously positive,
Yeah.
successful ministries, and that branding has really worked out for them. So it's really exciting for us to be able to work with them and to kind of benefit from the experience that they have, rather than just trying to reinvent the wheel on our own.
I am so action oriented, and I don't think I've even told you guys this, but we started this process 5 months ago or so with them, and I was expecting us to share our narrative, and for them, almost within 1 or 2 kind of gatherings, retreat type gatherings, for them to say, here it is, crystal. We met with them numerous times, and there were so many. I think there was like 6 different phases to get what we're going to talk to you about right now. Pages and pages of us sharing our story, then parroting it back, us modifying, bringing it back. We've never been a partner with an outside organization that could listen and then not only give us words, but also help us through the look, through the logo, through the mark that you're going to see, actually tell our story.
It's like a distillation, really just having these really fantastic conversations with them, and then using their skills of how to distill this into language, come up with the values that we're talking about and the mission statements that we're talking about that really, really reflects the leadership culture here better than what we've had before.
Yeah, I mean, what I really appreciated about the process is it was slower than we thought.
Yeah.
And that through that process, they really helped coach us that a logo is actually for not only you, it's more so for them, other people that have not yet bought your product. If you're Google, if you're Amazon, for us, it's who has not yet interacted with Jesus followers. And so just as we keep going down this conversation, I love when people say, wow, that's really true in my life, that once I interacted with the organization or the church, then I fell in love with it, and that the logo wasn't a distraction. So it's really a mission for, not mission with or life with. And so, we do life here together as Christ Greenfield. But think about like 10 years from now, when people see the logo that you liked in the past or whatever, they see this new logo and the mission statement, it means so much more to them because they interacted with you who went and shared the good news of Jesus with them. It's powerful.
So good. So we were having conversations with a number of different groups prior to just yesterday. And we started a number of those conversations showing the mark or the logo first. Wrong move. Because really, we're so visually inclined that they couldn't then hear. It was hard for people to actually hear what we were excited about, which is the language. And then the mark, the logo, supports the language. So that's where we're going to start even on this podcast. We have never had a robust mission statement like this. And here it is. The Christ Greenfield family of ministries exists. We are not just one church in one location. Now we have 2, hopefully 20 in the next 20 years, but we also have La Mesa, the Unite Leadership Center, and our wonderful school and preschool. We are a family of ministries. We exist to multiply disciples. We didn't have multiplication in our language prior. And then what is our leadership development pathway? Here it is. Who discover their purpose, develop their gifting, and deploy their calling. So discover, develop, and deploy. You're going to hear that, especially if you're on our leadership growth path here. You're going to hear that consistently. To be the light of Christ in places of overt and covert darkness. What is overt darkness? It's La Mesa, brokenness, poverty, despair, addiction. Covert darkness, Gilbert. Larger homes, affluence, but inside each one of us individually and maybe even in our family systems, family structures, there's darkness that the light of Christ needs to work on. And so to be the light of Christ in places of overt and covert darkness, resulting in holistic gospel, renewal, and revival. Pretty much every word has been agonized over. There's a story behind every single word. So, Jack, what do you love the most about the mission statement?
The word multiply. I think that's the thing that lights me up the most, which is really, it's what Jesus is asking us to do. When we think about what it means to be the church, to be leaders of the church, this mission statement speaks to the congregation, but it is also a mandate to leaders.
That's right.
And so it's not sufficient that you would just preserve people in their faith. what Jesus is really asking disciples to do is to go out and find new people and create new disciples, right? That's what Jesus is like explicitly asking us to do. And so multiply disciples. And then I love the 3D language. And the thing I love about the 3D language is discover, develop, deploy. These are not things that we can do on our own. I can't do that by myself. I have to partner with somebody who is a mentor to me so that that person can help me discover, develop, and deploy, right? And so that's a job description for every single person who's a leader here at Christ Greenfield.
Amen. Amen. It's not the great suggestion. It's the great
Right.
commission given by Jesus, his last will and testament for us to celebrate him, connected to the word, connected to the sacraments, and then go on mission, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. We are a part of that global mission. It's been going for 2,000 years now. Love the 3D language. Your wife, actually, in one of our kind of test sessions with confirmation students and families, she says, where is... And this is so good. Marta, shout out to Marta Kalberg. She goes, where is the gospel here? This is so action-oriented. And here was anytime we talk gospel, this is God's work for us. You don't reach up and grab onto Jesus. He reaches down and grabs onto you. And he changes you holistically, heart, body, mind, spirit. And in order to be the light of Christ, you've got to be connected to the light. Jesus is the light of the world. And it's out of his light that he then calls us to be light as well. So there is a lot there that is centered in the finished work of Jesus. But we will say this, it is very action forward.
Right.
In the midst of a church that can often rest in the passive righteousness, which is ours in Jesus, just kind of say, oh, it's good to be loved by you, Jesus. Let me go hang out on the beach and just like soak it. No. We are on mission. The days are short. This is a very action-oriented mission statement. What do you love about it, Jake?
Well, yeah, back to Jesus and that he says very similar things to this. This is where we found all these words, really is from the gospel story and what he said. And so I can see Jesus saying, wow, this is exactly in your contextual language in the 21st century in uncharted territory where Christians aren't, or non-Christians aren't just like really interested in the church, that this would be a good mission statement. Two really ones I want to call out is family, that we're a family of ministries, but we're also Christ Greenfield family. And so you can be divorced, you can be single, you can be a teenager, you can be an infant, you can be 93 years old. We are an intergenerational church that loves all people. We're a family. And then also deploy your calling, deploy their calling. It's our role, it's your role to deploy your calling. And a lot of times you might think, I don't really have a calling. I'm not that important. If, don't ever see the people that are on the front, the altar or the stage as like, wow, if it's the goal is to be like them or something. No, the goal is to be you and how God has called you to something. The word vocation means calling, and it's really like God calling you and you hearing it and then you moving into that specific role. And whether it be an accountant or a teacher or a nurse, a garbage man, a pastor, a tech person, you're helping the community, God's world, be better and focused on him as the creator. And so I just love that that's going to be our role. It is our role. And many of you, you might not know your calling. You're going to find it out in the coming years.
Yeah, can't wait to highlight Luther's doctrine of vocation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tim, what do you like?
Well, I mean, I like it all.
Of course.
So I already talked about the things I kind of like a lot. The overt and covert darkness really pops.
How about revival? That's not really a Lutheran word we use a lot of times.
I love
Maybe
that
you've
word
heard that
too.
before, but how do you see that word being played out? I love it's the last word of the whole statement too.
Right. So renewal has been used, mostly the Holy Spirit personal renewal, our baptismal renewal, regeneration, right? But then I'm connected to a wider body of believers and to the church, not just here, but the church around the globe. And we want to be a part of, especially in a post-Christian time, we want to be a part of a revival, people bending the knee to Jesus as Lord of every aspect of their life.
Yes.
We have not,
Amen.
and I think the anxious bench, this comes back, we want to revive this word in the right way. It's not about you kind of ascending in your like spiritual posture, as Lutherans a lot of times are really suspicious of experiential language. And rightly so. On the one hand, it's not dependent. Your walk with Jesus isn't dependent upon how close you feel to God. It's about his promises, his faithfulness. But then when we recognize the promises and faithfulness of God, our spirits are revived and we're connected to a movement. That's what we want to be a part of. Amen. A movement of the Holy Spirit. So renewal and revival. Thanks for drawing that.
Yeah. Now, that's a lot of words on a page, and a lot of times you have mission statements. We've had mission statements before here, but you just kind of file those away, and the board might take it out every couple of years and say, this is our mission.
That's not happening.
That's not happening here. And you might be used to us saying stuff like live the journey, join the journey. It's a 3E journey, experience, empower, expand. We would challenge you, though, if you didn't get a card yesterday, we'll have them in the coming weeks as well, to memorize that statement, not to put it away, but to really ponder each of those words as we've talked about them. But we're also going to have sticky statements that kind of pop out of that. And so, guys, what are some of those sticky statements, or the sticky statement we're leaning toward right now?
So family of ministries, you're going to see that around a lot. And then united in mission. Yeah. United in mission. That's who we are. So core values, the E's up to this point have been kind of our core organizing values. But again, they didn't tell the whole story of who we are and who we are becoming. So the first one, and they are in kind of a cascading order, Jesus reshapes all of life. I love the Apostle Paul's words in Colossians, that in him, in Jesus, we live and move and have our being. He is living within us. He's moving between us. And Jesus is at the center of everything we think, do, and say at Christ Greenfield. That is the first core value.
I hope and pray you love that. I mean, just that the first word there is Jesus. He reshapes all of life. Just come back next week to Christ Greenfield on both campuses and see how you see these phrases actually portrayed. It's going to be great. Number 2 is biblical truth roots us. We are that green field, and we're only growing in the Spirit because we're planted in Jesus. And so if you go under the earth, like even a big tree, right, there's these huge root systems. And so the Bible grounds us. In a world where other kind of books are maybe grounding people, are rooting people, this is what roots us in the good soil within Christianity, is the Bible. And so we're always going to be preaching from the Word, from the Bible, and believe every word it says.
So then number 3 is that our Lutheran heritage grounds us.
Lutheran.
Not just any type of Lutheran. Our LCMS Lutheran heritage grounds us. And I love that. So those who know me, I did not grow up Lutheran. I was baptized Lutheran, but I did not grow up Lutheran. I grew up in a Pentecostal tradition. And when I got connected to Christ Greenfield, the Lutheran heritage, I really loved it. I loved that it connected back so many years, 500 years of history and tradition and doctrine, and this great system that had been put together to raise up people in a formal seminary program. I loved it, and I continue to love it. And we want to make sure that it's a part of who we are, that it's a timeless tradition, so that even when you're worshiping in a modern context, in a modern, less formal context, that there's still these really timeless elements that are built into our worship practices. And then also to clarify that we are LCMS. And I think that's interesting because when we just use the word Lutheran, it doesn't necessarily communicate to everybody who we are. It means something to me. But if I just put it out to the world, it may mean something really, really different. And I think that goes to the fact that we're not the largest Lutheran denomination. There are other denominations, Elka, for example. And if you go to their churches, you'll see that some of their views on the Bible are a little different than ours. And it really kind of plays out in some of the doctrine that they have. And we want to be very clear about the type of Lutherans that we are.
Yeah, there's actually 30 different Lutheran denominations in America, all very small, but the larger one is this Evangelical Lutheran Church.
Right.
That over the years, people that we've talked to in the community that see the word Lutheran, if you're not very specific, might actually think, because the prevailing voice is more liberal, the ELCA Church, and that Lutheran equals liberal, and that's not us. Back to point number 2, the biblical truth roots us.
Yeah,
and so it's so good to be actually more specific on LCMS.
We even had a real life example of that, meeting with another pastor. We were talking about some curriculum that might be shared.
Right.
And he told us, when I first heard that you guys were Lutheran, I was thinking you guys were like this really, really liberal, and we love every Christian out
course,
there, but
of course.
that's not who we are. So it's
Right.
great to be clearer about who we are.
The other counterpoint, too, with the whole Lutheran conversation is since we are a family of ministries, like we can go so hard on Lutheran and we're not ashamed of our Lutheran heritage. But the reality right now in our congregation is we are welcoming in our weekly starting point classes many people who have not been connected to a church, so nuns, N-O-N-E-S, and then folks who are coming from another denomination, another background, from Catholic to Pentecostal. And so we are for them. We love our Lutheran heritage, but we are a Jesus follower. We are a part of the wider one holy Christian and apostolic church. That is our passion. So there is this kind of center point, tension-filled,
Right.
balanced-filled position that we're trying to take as we talk about even who we are as Lutheran followers of Jesus.
Right.
Point number 4, our core value 4 is community is our context. We are resisting everything that is autonomous, individualistic, and this is both individual autonomy and corporate autonomy as churches. We are better together as we work even within the wider One Holy Christian Apostolic Church.
Yep. Number 5 is leadership development is our passion. If you've been with us for a season or longer, you've heard about leaders being raised up. Many of you are those leaders, and it's an honor to see you discover, develop, and deploy your calling, your purpose, your gifting into the community and into our church so that many more campuses could be started so that people would be reached through that. We even started a new thing through the Unite Leadership Center where 5 churches are being trained together, including ours, on some of the best people in the nation about leadership development. Other churches that are just killing it and raising up people, having extreme growth through seeing everyone as a potential to leadership. And so that will continue to be our passion. Maybe you are one of those people that are like, man, I really do think I should take my next step. Come talk to us.
Yeah. And then number 6, following leadership, as we raise new leaders, then we start to have the resources to really live out number 6, which is mission is our mandate. And so really being intentional about multiplication, launching new campuses, new starts, new schools, all these things to reach the community where that's just full of people that we would call pre-Christians. And so it's really exciting to think about this passion of raising leaders, developing them in relationships, coach and apprentice, replicating ourselves, and then saying, here's a place where people need to hear Jesus. Let's deploy these people. This is a missional initiative, starting something new.
Yes, so good. So we have clarity now around a mission statement, core values for our family of ministries, and then our simple discipleship journey, which is worship and be in a journey group and then serve. This is the sweet spot of your following Jesus, a follower of Jesus here at Christ Greenfield, is that simple discipleship journey. So it's those 3 things that as our bulletin changes, our communication handles change, our website, social media presence, you're going to hear mission, core values, and our simple discipleship process. So it is with that being the context that we now are, Jack, you are a drummer.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Todd in post-op, there we go. And here it is, the brand new logo and mark for Christ Greenfield.
Dun, 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 dun.
Boom! So take it in, there it
There it
is.
is.
It's funny, as we've shared this with folks, there's just kind of a silence, like, huh. And as a leader, I'm like, I don't know what you're thinking exactly right now. So
I like to lean on Renee Snodgrass,
Yeah.
one of our amazing preschool teachers. She said that looks really hope-filled,
Yeah.
okay.
hopeful,
Cool.
hopeful growth.
So you will see the C for Christ. Christ is the core of our ministry. You will also then see the G, Greenfield. We've talked about how we feel that metaphor is really, really helpful. Then you'll see the leaf. I've also been looking at it as a seed as well, a small seed for multiplication. And then you'll see in the middle, some people have said a sun-kissed orange. Okay, fine.
Half of one.
I like an orange. I got a good orange tree in
the
the
bite
backyard. That's
to
fine. The initial intent was twofold. One, it is the sun. The sun equals life and light and growth. And then what is the linchpin theology of our entire faith? It's that Jesus lived, he died, and then on the 3rd day, the stone was rolled away. So you can choose to see the hope and life because Jesus lives. We live as a people of God too. So the macro brand for the ministry, simplifying things there, is Christ Greenfield. I know there was a lot of conversation. This is going to be on an FAQ document that is going out right now. Frequently asked questions. A lot of questions around where is the apostrophe S? A couple things there. One, we are still possessed by Christ. We are His. He has claimed us. And that's the best sense of the word, I think, or the best sense of the apostrophe S, is He had claimed us. But here was two of, maybe just you, Jack, talk to us about two things that were complicated in using the apostrophe S.
Well, the first is that it's hard to pronounce. You say the word Christ. Most people actually don't pronounce it as Christ's just because you're doing so just as a shortcut, every time I hear about it, I always hear people say Christ Greenfield. So that's just how people say it. The other is when people search for us, most people are searching for us using the words Christ Greenfield without the apostrophe S. So the imagery of Christ's, we belong to Christ, we still believe that fully, but it's just making it a little bit more accessible.
Another frequently asked question is what, Pastor Jake?
Where is the cross? Now, we're not ashamed of the cross of Jesus Christ. And if you walk on this campus or go to our website, you're going to see crosses. And in the name, you see Christ. We thought about putting the T there and making it a cross, but the word Christ is literally anointed one. It points to Jesus who is on the cross. And what we really learned from Historic Agency and also people in the community, that when people are on the fence about this Jesus or they're exploring it, they've seen the cross before probably, and it could be a stumbling block actually to be in relationship with you. And we know that's a truth from the word as well. It's a stumbling block, but we don't want it to be a stumbling block if that's the one thing. They're going to come into our context and hear about Jesus Christ, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the logo. And now we feel really good about this as well because of the sun, which looks like a stone being rolled away as well. And there's a steeple on our campus here at 425. There's crosses already in both of the sanctuaries here and also at the new East Mesa location. It was actually one of the first things we decided to put up is a cross every single Sunday. So we're not abandoning the cross. Another thing is that there's a cross that looks similar to our logo that will be used in our bulletin and a lot of our branding as we go into specific markets and specific people whenever it's really helpful.
Yeah.
And the last question is, where is Lutheran? And we've talked around this a lot up to this point, but right up front, we are clarifying that we are on mission for all people. And if you are here, we really feel like Lutheran, connected to our core values, is going to be highlighted. Again, remember what is not going to be changing. And connected to our core values as well, we are going to really be putting forward, if you're a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, this is insider language, right? LCMS, you're a proud card-carrying member, born baptized, right. You'll be buried in LCMS Lutheran, We're gonna put up the LCMS cross, and I think many of you know what that looks like in some of our branding as well. But we don't want, for those for whom Lutheran is confusing, or they're neutral toward it, or they've had maybe a bad experience in maybe a Catholic context and they see us as stoic and kind of elitist and not as welcoming as we could be. We don't want Lutheran to be a stumbling block for them. So what we basically said, for those for whom it's helpful, shout it from the rooftops. Nothing is being compromised or changed. But for those for whom it's confusing or negative, we want them to know Christ is the one we worship here. You're going to encounter Jesus connected to the Word, and then we've been planted, and we're proud of it, in the fertile soil of our Lutheran heritage.
One of the things I like about, I use the word our brand, Christ Greenfield, is that it really is seen very, very positively, not just in this community, but even throughout the nation. It has a really great reputation. And when people are moving to the valley, we hear stories of people that go out of their way to buy houses close to this area because their Lutheran friends told them what a great place it is to hang out here. And this is bragging a little bit, but it speaks to how valuable this place is to people that are already existing Lutherans and know who we are, and that's never going to change.
Some people have asked, how are they going to find Christ Greenfield? If like in one of the main looks, I mean, how are they going to know we're a Lutheran church, Jack?
It'll still be a part of our website, and we'll still continue to, whenever we need to, do ads that would include the word Lutheran. It'll be part of the text of the site if people are looking about what we believe. It's just we don't want it to be the kind of thing that would automatically shut somebody off if they don't know who we are.
And if you go to lcms.org, you're going to find Christ Greenfield.
Right,
and if you just type into Google closest Lutheran church in Gilbert, or eventually then in Mesa, we're right at the top. Test us and see that the Lord is good.
Lutheran church near me.
Yeah.
Christ Greenfield. Boom. Loud and proud. So thank you so much for sitting in with us today. I'm sure there's going to be lots of conversation. Keep this in mind. Closing word from us is, I love you. We love you. We are proud to be leaders here in this community. And we did not go into this flippantly or lightly in a cavalier type of manner. This has been filled with prayer. Lots of conversation with the Lord and trying to discern, how do we steward? This is for our time right now. How do we steward and advance the mission of Jesus in this time and space? I do not want to do anything to hurt you or the mission of Jesus here in this place. And so we pray that as we have conversations, looks and logos and all this stuff is very subjective, that we put the best construction on everything, and that if we disagree, we disagree agreeably, and that we remain united in mission, because our unity is a witness to a watching world.
Yeah, and we want to hear from you, so continue the conversation. But conversations are better in person. So honestly, watch what you say online, just in the sense of debating and stuff. We'd love to sit down with anyone to continue to point them to Jesus and further explain all of this. But really, as you look into the future, new campuses launched, a gym and 8 classrooms on our campus, a new Journey Center that would be a Unite Leadership Center, and coffee into the future, people being raised up and sent out. That's really what all this is about. So don't let the evil one distract you and compromise our unity. We're not looking to do that. We're looking to move forward so that more people are in heaven on that last day.
One final word, an interesting story to close. Our namesake of our church, still Christ Greenfield Lutheran Church, Martin Luther. Yeah. Who is Luther? This guy was unbelievable in returning the church to the sola scriptura, gratia. Who talks like this? Fides, okay? By grace, by faith, centered in the word alone, okay? So who was this guy? In 1522, he wrote an article. It's called An Admonition Against Insurrection. You see, the church, whenever a movement starts, there are some who are out on the fringes that want to move it too fast. And they started very early on in the early 20s, 16th century, calling themselves Lutherans. I'm a part of this movement called Lutheran. And do you know what Martin Luther said? Who is Luther? He was actually referring back to the Apostle Paul. Who is Paul? Who is Apollos? He says, who is Luther? I'll tell you who Luther is. He's nothing but a stinking bag of worms. So if you are to call yourself anything, you call yourself Christian, after the one who died and rose again. We have 500 years of history. We are proud to be Lutherans, but let it be known first and foremost, we bend the knee to Jesus as Christ and King. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on Lead Time this day. Sharing is caring. Get the word out about what Jesus is doing, and love one another well. Remain united in mission. Thanks, Jack and Jake.
Peace.
Yeah.
You have been listening to Lead Time with Tim and Jake. Please subscribe at cglchurch.org/leadtime. Thanks for listening. Tune in next Monday for another episode.